Hey everybody, and Tony here with a review of Jules Massenet's Cendrillon, which was shown at the Komische Oper Berlin. The conductor was Henrik Nanassi, the production was done by Damiano Micheletto, the choreographer was Sabina Franz, the set designer was Paolo Fantin, the costumes were done by Klaus Bruns, the lighting was done by Alessandro Carletti, the dramaturgy was handled by Simon Berga, and the chorus master was Andrew Crooks. Now, whenever you think of Jules Massenet, you automatically think of three of his most famous operas of all time, Manon, Werther, and Thais. Yes, he also composed a lot of other different operas, but these three are the ones that are the most famous, most performed, and the ones that a lot of people seem to remember. And whenever you think of an operatic version of the Cinderella fairy tale, which is also very famous, you automatically think of Rossini's La Cenerentola. And when you put two and two together, you'd be very surprised to find out that Jules Massenet also composed his own version of the Cinderella fairy tale. When I was about 12 or 13 years old, I myself was very surprised that Jules Massenet composed his own version of the Cinderella fairy tale. I did a lot of research on the plot, some of the performers it garnered, its well-known arias, well-known numbers, and also listened to a few samples of the opera on YouTube, most notably the duet between Le Prince Charmant and Lucette when they meet in the woods, thus intervened by the fairy godmother. What I also seem to notice about this opera is that it is rarely performed, yet gained a cult following throughout a lot of the European opera houses, most notably in France. What's also very interesting is that the title role of Cinderella and the prince are mainly created for sopranos. At times, high mezzos would end up singing both of these roles, or one would even have Cinderella being sung by a lyric soprano and the prince being sung by a high mezzo. And this gained a huge following when it also reached the United States, when this opera was performed at the Santa Fe Opera House starring Joyce DiDonato in the title role. Even before her, one very famous interpreter of the role was Frederica von Stade, who herself was a very famous American coloratura mezzo. So you could really see that aside from some mezzos attempting Rossini's version of Cinderella, they also do Massenet's Cinderella as well, though some of them also sing the role of the prince, which is mainly for a darker voice soprano or like a more spintoy soprano. Not to mention, this opera also garnered a lot of famous singers singing the different roles. Like, for example, you have Maureen Forrester singing the role of the stepmother, Madame de l'Haltière, and the aforementioned likes of Frederica von Stade, Joyce DiDonato, Svetla Vassilieva, and Rebecca Evans, just to name a few. Now, while Rossini's version had a stepfather and the usual two stepsisters and the philosopher replacing the fairy godmother and having a sort of prince and the pauper-like setting with Dandini and Principe Ramiro, this version has the father still alive, and yes, it still has the lost glass slipper, and the wicked stepmother, and the mean stepsisters, and the fairy godmother. However, what's also added into this is that the fairy godmother also does play a part when it comes to the prince and Lucette meeting each other in the woods and confessing their feelings to each other, which is rarely done in any adaptation of Cinderella. Not to mention, Cendrillon in this opera has the real name of Lucette. With that said, let's get on to what I thought about the production, costumes, singers, conducting, and chorus. Now, Damiano Micheletto's version of this particular opera sets the entire action in a ballet studio. The opera opens up with an old lady who is known as the Old Fairy coming into the empty studio, sitting on the piano at first, and looking at a pair of ballet shoes as if though there was something special that she'd like to express. And then everything comes into full swing as we see these dancers preparing for something very extraordinary. Madame de la Haltière in this production is mainly the headmistress of the ballet academy, while poor Pandolf is basically still the well-meaning yet very poor sap of the husband. And her two daughters, Noémie and Dorothée, are two of the students of this academy. Meanwhile, we see Lucette, aka Cendrillon, bedridden, but also has a major cast on her left leg, as though that she used to dance before, but due to a tragic accident, she's now bedridden and feels like her hopes and dreams and everything that she's worked for are gone. And she feels like she can't live with this pain anymore until the old fairy blows some magic dust to not only her, but also to the nurse and the doctor about to do an operation on her cast. And then we see a myriad of old ladies, presumably grandmothers, great aunts, and aunties, coming in with the fairy leading the retinue. And at the same time, we see that they not only prepare a dress for her, but miraculously, Lucette's left leg has healed and she feels so free to finally dance again when she sees her ball gown and ballet shoes. Does she gain that confidence? The prince in this production is mainly a sulking teenager who is so sick and tired of all the crazy norms that his domineering father has to offer him. And yes, there are still elements of the original fairy tale and the libretto of this opera. And at the end, it seems as though that we think that Cinderella might not get her happily ever after, but the prince decides that enough is enough. He's so sick and tired of the pretense. He throws the ballet shoes to the other people, and then he finally gets the girl. So I thought that this was a very fresh and very interesting take on the Cinderella fairy tale. And the costumes were absolutely gorgeous. What I seem to notice, not only in the costumes, but also in the lighting, is that the color blue is mostly used. Whether it's sky blue or normal blue or midnight blue, as if though it's to suggest something mystical and almost suggesting that we are leaving the normal world and stepping into something that is fantastical yet very exciting. So I really love this approach. And what's also really funny is that the men especially are in drag, which I found kind of weird, but kind of hilarious as well. So overall, I really have to say that this production was very enjoyable. There were no moments of controversy whatsoever, and it was just enjoyable all throughout in its own special way. And now we get to the singers. Starting off with our title heroine, Lucette, aka Cendrillon, we have the wonderful German lyric soprano, Nadia Makhantoff. The role of Cendrillon calls for a light lyric soprano who can be able to navigate a huge tessitura and at the same time look as delicate and lovely and really portray this title heroine. Just like her predecessor, Susanna, she is on stage for almost the entire opera. This role calls for any singer who has sung the likes of Cherubino, La Princesse Eudoxie, Ancien, Circonstance, and Agnole, and even to some extent Melisande and Blanche. She needs to have Cherubino's and Agnole's youthfulness combined with Ancien's spark, and of course those lovely flowing lines of La Princesse Eudoxie from La Juive. Over the years, Nadia Makhantoff has made a name for herself, singing a lot of these light lyric soprano roles, whether it be La Princesse Eudoxie, Musetta, Susanna, Despina, Zerlina, Entchen, all of these delicious light lyric soprano roles, and nowadays she is slowly transitioning into the fuller lyric soprano roles of Rosalka and Tatiana. I thought her singing and her acting were just so amazing and so scintillating, and she was a very honest singer. She never had any gimmick whatsoever. She's not like one of those super high sopranos. She has a very creamy tone in her voice, but it sounds very youthful and very scintillating and sparkling all throughout. Not to mention, aside from being a very great singer, she's also a very wonderful ballet dancer. And she shows her ballet dancing prowess in a lot of the scenes, mainly during the ball scene. She was like a snowflake when she was able to go on her toes via the pointe ballet shoes that she wore, and they looked really fabulous on her. And she was the star of the evening. She was not only a very wonderful singer with a scintillating voice, with a creamy tone and lots of vivacity, but she was an equally vivacious and graceful ballet dancer, which she managed to really put two and two together, and voila, a complete performer. And I have to give my hat off to Miss Makhantaf for a very outstanding job really portraying this character to a T. Then we have her love interest, Le Prince Charmant, sung by Carolina Gumos. Throughout history, the role of the prince has mostly been sung by full lyric sopranos, most notably by the likes of Mary Garden, who was the first Melisande. And nowadays, this role has been dominated by a lot of lyric mezzos. The ones that come to mind are Pamela Helen Stephen, Delia Wallace, Jennifer Holloway, and Alice Coote, just to name a few. The prince needs Dorabella's and Vitalia's lovely plush notes, but also Blanche Delaforce's, Agatha's, Melisande's, and Suor Angelica's lyrical and melodious lines as well, which is no surprise that I always love it that a soprano sings this role, much like what I always love when Henza is sung by a soprano. There's no mincing words here. Carolina Gumos continues to show her artistry and show just how much of a pro she is as a singer, especially in a lot of the pants roles she does. She handles her character very well, giving him such youthfulness and at times a certain melancholy, which really makes the prince a sort of enjoyable character to watch on stage. Her singing was of the highest order. It's scintillating, it's creamy, it's gorgeous, and her stage presence was appropriately youthful and boyish. And not to mention, she and Miss Makhantaf were very gorgeous on stage. They had excellent chemistry. Then we go to the role of the fairy godmother, sung tonight by Carolina Wettergren. Yes, Marie Eriksmoen was supposed to sing this role, but I think she kind of took a rest, and basically Carolina Wettergren was the understudy. The role of the fairy is quite a tough role for a lot of light lyric coloratura sopranos. You need to combine Papagena's, Despina's, and Blonde's pert girlishness, along with the virtuoso coloratura singing of a Zerbinetta, Fiacchermilli, Oscar, Blonde, Celia, Queen of the Night, and Lakme, and roll it into one package. There are a lot of great interpreters of this role, the likes of Lillian Watson, Ruth Welting, and most recently we had Eglise Gutierrez. So, with Carolina Wettergren as the fairy, she was absolutely lovely. She has a very gorgeous tone, very scintillating in the upper register and very homogeneous all throughout. But more than anything, I love the timbre of her voice. Every time she opens her mouth, it's like a cascade of gold, silver, rubies, diamonds, and sapphires just fall out of her mouth, producing such lovely, dulcet, and sparkling tones. Her coloratura technique is of the highest order as well. She's able to navigate a lot of the fairy's fiendish coloratura, yet maintain a silvery and gorgeous tone. She was an absolute pro in this wonderful character role, and I have to give her a lot of kudos for making the best out of this underrated coloratura soprano role. Then we have the role of poor Pandolf, Cinderella's father, sung tonight by the dramatic baritone Werner van Mechelen, who is very well known for his interpretations of the Wagnerian repertoire, but also a lot of the dramatic baritone roles in the Italian, French, and at times the Russian and Slavic repertoire in general. The role of Pandolf calls for a dramatic baritone who has a plush sound and can sing lyrically as well. Yes, this role is not as coveted as the likes of Amonasro, Falstaff, Giorgio Germont, Monforte, Nabucco, Scarpia, Michele from Itavaro, Jack Rance, Telramund, Alberich, Covenal, Johanna Ann Klingsor, and Jupiter from Der Liebe der Danai, but he's had his fair share of dramatic baritones who lent their voices to this very wonderful character. And Werner van Mechelen did a very wonderful job making Pandolf a very sympathetic, yet at times almost overwhelmed character. He manages to place a lot of colors and a lot of mannerisms and a lot of dimension to this wonderful father of a character. His moments with Nadia Machentaf were just so lovely. And his stage presence was also very multidimensional. He does play a lot of the comic side to Pandolf, but also manages to make Pandolf a Papa Wolf, and he does it very, very well. And then we have the role of his second wife, Madame de la Haltière, sung tonight by the excellent dramatic mezzo-soprano Agnes Zvierko. Now, what do you get when you combine the chest tones of an Erda, Ulrika, Clytemnestra, Federica from Louisa Miller, Genevieve from Pelléas et Mélisande, and Marfa from Covancina, to the histrionics of Herodias and Azucena, to the blazing intensity of Africa, Brangena, Ortrud, Amneris, Eboli, and Gertrude from Hamlet, and put in a pinch of comic timing via Marcellina from Le Nozze di Figaro and Preziosilla from La Forza del Destino. You get Madame de la Haltière. This role has attracted a lot of dramatic mezzos and contraltos because of just how thrilling she is as a character. This is a superb character part for any dramatic mezzo-contralto. We have the likes of Maureen Forrester, Jean Belpied, Hannah Schell, and Eva Podlesch singing this rollickingly fabulous character role. I thought that Agnes Zvierko, what more can I say about her? Her singing, her acting, her everything was of the highest order. She's able to make Madame de la Haltière a very powerful, domineering force of nature, yet also have her moments of comedy as well. She is very well done in all of the departments of singing, of acting, comic timing, and just making her just fun to watch on stage. Yes, I could really tell that Madame Zvierko had a lot of fun, really putting in a lot of fun and enjoyment and just her own sense of spice and overall vivacity into this superb character role. And she was absolutely scintillating. She was just so engaging in this character that I practically had my eyes glued to her, and I was totally taken aback by her artistry and her overall charm of what she was able to place into this superb character. Then we have the roles of her two daughters, Noemi and Dorothée, sung superbly by Mirka Wagner and Zoe Kisse. Now, these two really call for two character sopranos who have a lot of light and luscious singing and just have a lot of great comic timing. Fortunately for the likes of Miss Wagner and Miss Kissa, these two are able to sing very gorgeously and have a lot of great comic timing as well. Then we have the role of the king, sung by Karsten Zabrowski, who has a very plush basso voice, and even though it's not as powerful as the likes of his predecessors, Gottlob Frick and Kurt Böhme, he's a very superb artist in his own special way. And then we have the much smaller roles of the Major Domo, the Superintendent, and the First Minister, sung respectively by Christoph Späth, Nikolai Ivanov, and Philipp Meyerhofer. They were very superb in these small characters, and they were able to be absolutely fun in their own special ways. I also have to give a huge kudos to the Six Spirits, sung by Anja Kirov-Vogler, Sabine Hill, Katrin Leprovost, Mechthild Sauer, Josefina Eberlein, and Katrin Hacker for having such harmonious qualities to their tones, and to the dancers, Veselina Hancheva and Miguel Angel Collado for being very superb in their own special ways, and of course the silent role of the old fairy done by Evelyn Gundlach. So overall, what more can I say about the performances of this evening? They were of the highest order. Everybody was excellent. Everybody was a pro. And the conducting done by Maestro Henrik Nanasi was also well done. However, I would have loved to have the duet between the prince and Cendrillon a little bit more pensive and just let it take its time, because I felt that it was a little bit rushed. Aside from that, I felt like his conducting was very solid as everyone got together. So overall, I really have to say that this was an absolutely fabulous time that I had with this opera in particular. The production was totally fun in its own special way. The singers were of the highest order, the conducting was solid, and I just had a very great time in general. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune in tomorrow where I review a concert featuring Michaela Kaune at the Deutsche Oper Berlin. I hope I can make it though. So until then, good night everybody, and if you want to stay tuned for a lot of reviews on this channel, then please don't be afraid to subscribe. So until then, good night everybody.